and welcome to Holy Family's video series Between Two Pews. This week I'm joined by Jennifer Danic from the Steuben County Community Foundation, and today we're going to be talking about abundance. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start out just by telling us a little bit about you and about your work in our community, and we'll go from there.
Great. Yep. So I'm Jennifer from the Steuben County Community Foundation. My world revolves around connecting donors with nonprofit and charitable causes in Steuben County. So I am in the center of a beautiful place of abundance, I guess, and connecting donors that have a desire to give back and help them find appropriate or creative places locally to give their gifts here in our community.
Okay, wonderful. Well, one of the goals, of course, of this podcast, or this video series, is to help others just really see God's work in our community. So are there any specific examples that you can see that just really stand out to you about just how God's working in our community?
I think I'm constantly reminded of the things we see at the Community Foundation. Giving is a very personal act. It's a very emotional and personal act. And I'm sometimes surprised by the community's when people say that they don't see generosity or they think our community is not very giving, just remembering that that's all we do at the Community Foundation and that's all we see. And we see it on a very individualized level. You know, throughout the United States, over 70% of all the giving that is done by individuals. It's not by foundations or corporations. The majority of gifts are made by individuals like you and me. And the largest subset, the largest sector that individuals give to year after year for decades has been religion. So over 30% of all charitable gifts in the United States goes towards religious causes. And I know from our personal experience at the Steuben County Community Foundation that's true as well. We help connect donors to all different types of charitable entities, but most individuals that come through our doors also have a religious perspective and desire to give back to their religion.
And I'm sure you see not just large donations like Cardinal IG, but
Correct.
Gifts of all kinds, all talents, all monetary levels.
Yes. As with most things in the world, the media catches the big gifts, what we call the gifts with commas and lots of zeros. Yes, those you will read about on social media or in local journalism. But at the Steuben County Foundation for 31 years running, our average gift size has been $100 and will continue in that direction. The majority of the gifts in and around our community are from people of $100 gifts.
Modest means.
Yes. I don't want to be offensive.
Right. So I'm assuming that, you partner with these people, or organizations, donors, to really see how their gifts can work, not only individually, but together as a whole to really be, to make an impact in whatever, right? You're more of a guidance.
Yes, we like to say we're more of a trusted friend. We don't have an agenda at the Community Foundation on what exactly should be supported by a donor's gift. Our work in the middle of donors and charities, we get to know the charitable organizations, the nonprofits, the churches, the service clubs in the community, and we get to know how they operate, what they wish to do, what their goals are, what their passions are, what their impact is in the community. And then we get to translate that to donors that come in. Oftentimes, donors will come into the foundation with one or two things that they're familiar with and that they're passionate about, but then we'll open up the door and say, what else do you know that's happening, or what else can I support? And that's just that two-way dialogue back and forth between donors and nonprofits in our community that we get. That's just a constant conversation that we have every day.
Wonderful. And some things I've been hearing a lot lately, and I think it's affecting many of our households, is this interesting financial times that we're in. Are you noticing any anxiety from your donors, or is there a way that you and the foundation kind of works from that place of abundance, that it doesn't have to be everything to be something?
Sure. As economic cycles go up and down, our local community foundation has been around for a little over 30 years, but it's based on foundation models that have over 200 years of history, and we follow these trends. So as economic cycles go up and down, the donor profile does change, but giving in general does not change much. Usually, when money gets tight for some groups of people, those that do have an abundance step forward and say, what can I do to help? And then when there's a mass influx of the average donor that comes in, those with an abundance tend to step back and say, we'll let others support these day-to-day causes. So again, the donor profile changes, but generosity in general throughout the country, and it rings true in Steuben County, does not change much. The formality of giving changes. There's a difference between formal and informal philanthropy. Formal philanthropy is much more quantifiable. You can measure how many people and how much. Informal philanthropy is neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping friends, helping individuals and groups of people survive and thrive, and that also goes up and down with different cycles, but overall the generosity remains a piece of an economy regardless of the economics.
And I feel like maybe you see the informal giving a little more in smaller communities like ours, just because we seem to know our neighbors a little bit more, or at least know of them, and just have, I don't know, more ear to the ground, if that makes sense. We're a little more connected, I guess, and so that's a benefit of being small. Not everything has to be huge to be impactful. So, as a fellow Christian, you're Pleasant View, just down the road from us. So, how does your faith, your just this attitude of abundance over scarcity that we as Christians are called to have, how does that play a part or impact your work, not only at the Community Foundation, but as another fellow young mom, with your family as well?
Sure. I grew up in a family where giving was an expectation. It was something I modeled and saw on a regular basis with my parents and their social circle, and then came into this industry through college and graduate school, and it became more formalized. So I always had the family background and the education in this industry, but it's really not until you have your own children that you recognize the complexity of giving, and teaching to give joyfully has been a constant process that my husband and I have been working through. Having giving not be an obligation or a negative thing in the eyes of our children, but teaching them about giving has been more challenging than I had envisioned. As I mentioned, I had the history and the education. I thought, well, of course it will be easy to teach my kids how to give. That's who I am. But it's not. It doesn't mean my children aren't generous. It just means that there are so many stresses and impacts and the things with media and friends and community. There's so many things that are drawing your attention that prioritizing giving does take some fortitude. It takes energy and effort, and in the Christian faith, giving back is a key tenet. Being generous, giving from a place of joy is an expectation, but it is something that we have to constantly hone and work on. It doesn't come as naturally as I would have expected.
Well, and more discernment too. I don't know about your boys, but I know sometimes Asher wants to give everything to everything, and sometimes we just have to dial it back and really where can we not only make an impact, but where maybe where the most need is, or if we give and give and give, eventually we don't have enough to give. So we have to have ways to refill that as well. But I've noticed here at Holy Family, we've tried to be very purposeful during pledge season, and so each of the youth and the children get their own pledge packet. So they're not being asked to give in the way an adult or a fully formed member would, but their gifts are still small but mighty, you could say. They like to, it shows that they are a part of this bigger picture. They're a part of this congregation, and that their gifts, no matter how large or small, are still valued. And I think that really helps with the joy of it. It's when you're not speaking down to them about it. So that's been an interesting thing for me to see as a mom, because it's just, like you said, you don't realize until you're on the other end of things. So something we've kind of been talking about here at Holy Family too, is that we all have different gifts. We did the spiritual gifts assessment that many people have taken part of. And while I think most of us are pretty, at least somewhat self-aware of where our strengths lie or our passions, it's been really interesting to see, at least for me, knowing that where my gifts are, I don't have to compare them to Jennifer's or to my sisters. You all know, most of you know Abby, or anyone else not only in our congregation, but in the wider world. It's not better or less than, they're just different, but they're all meant to work together. So do you see a lot of that in your work too, where there might be little bits here, little bits there, but you put it all together and you have...
And I think that's the core of what, back to the professional life, the core of what the Community Foundation is taking the disparate types of gifts that donors have for benefits in Steuben County and pooling them together for the greatest impact. And it is neat to see the wide range of the child donor or the young, like high school age donor, and their desire to give. But going all the way to the other end of that, an individual or a couple in their latter years of life, reflecting back on their community and wanting some guidance on how to give back. I've had the interesting opportunity to sit with a series of donors that struggle with the burdens of wealth as well. Someone who's accumulated too much, which as a younger professional you kind of laugh at and say, oh, wouldn't that be nice? But there is a real sense of burden to some individuals that are reflecting back on decades of their life, and they've found themselves, whether by choice or by circumstance, with an abundance of money, and now are burdened by what to do with it and how to not create issues by giving it away, and wonder how to give it away. So at the Community Foundation, we're able to piece all those different, from youth philanthropy to final days philanthropy and everything in the middle, and try to piece that puzzle all together for the benefit of the community. So I don't think there's any biblical teaching that says that one type of giving is, whether it be youth or in final days of one's life, it's all valuable. It all comes from the place in the heart and the desire and the joy of giving.
When you were telling me something interesting that I wasn't aware of, I've seen the fist flyer that came home in my kids' folders about a canned goods drive, but tell me a little bit more about that process and what that is.
So the Community Foundation started a youth philanthropy group about 28 years ago or so, called Forever Improving Steuben Together. And it has a student or two from 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade in the MSD, Fremont, and Hamilton schools. So there's 15 to 18 students that gather monthly in Steuben County at the Community Foundation to learn about philanthropy, which is giving of their time, talent, and treasure. And so we, as you said, formed adults are teaching these high schoolers about giving and encouraging them. And a handful of years ago, we had the idea of the best way of teaching these high schoolers about philanthropy is to turn around and have them teach others. So now it's so fun to watch this FIST group each year. They go into every 5th grade classroom in all of the Fremont, Hamilton, and MSD schools, and all of the schools. Once a year, they go into the 5th grade classrooms and teach them about philanthropy. So it's the high schoolers teaching the elementary schoolers about giving back and the joy of that. And it's only been a couple of years. I think it's been 3 or 4 years since we've been doing that. But these 5th graders are now, some of them are now old enough to be in FIST or a part of high school and giving back. And we see that generosity spreading from teaching young people at a young age about the opportunity and the joy and sometimes the impacts of giving.
That's amazing. Like, I can see how my kids look up to their older cousins, and I can see how that would be a real, it hits kids in a different way than hearing it from an
Correct.
adult. So
Me talking to a 5th grader is not nearly as beneficial as a 15-year-old talking to a 5th grader.
Absolutely. They just think it's really cool that they're spending time together. So,
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I guess, we'll link your website to this video. Are there any other resources on your website that maybe just the outside looker, if they're looking to give or to be involved in something, could?
We have a very informal but always being updated nonprofit directory on the Community Foundation website, which is just a listing of all of the nonprofits located in or doing services in Steuben County, and it has contact name, mission, website, etc. if you'd like additional information about other charities in the area. There's also information about giving and information about starting nonprofits or other resources that can help nonprofits improve their practices.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Jen, thank you so much for joining us on this video series. We appreciate you coming and all the work that you are doing in our community. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.